today to John Culliver, to Yehuda Hai Ben Matai Leah, to Sam Peak, to Rusty Gerhardt, to Greg and Gary Davis and family, to Jared Judd Heath Holly and Lucky Harris, to Buck Trevor and Hunter and R.C. Upmore, and all the families that were also affected in the West explosion, and for Russell's back, and for all those needing healing. So we're going to dedicate this class to them. We want to thank God for His Torah. Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the universe and giver of the Torah, and may all the Torah we learn today we remember. That's the most important thing. And now we will say the prayer of the Ari, because we do delve into Zohar and Kabbalah. So this is the prayer of the Ari. Ruler of the universe and master of all masters, Father of mercy and forgiveness, we thank you, our God and the God of our fathers, by bowing down and kneeling, that you brought us closer to your Torah and your holy work, and you enable us to take part in the secrets of your holy Torah. How worthy are we that you grant us with such a big favor. That is the reason we plead before you, that you will forgive and acquit all of our sins, and that they should not bring separation between you and us. May it be your will before you, our God and the God of our fathers, that you will awaken and prepare our hearts to love and revere you. And may you listen to our utterances and open our closed hearts to the hidden studies of your Torah. And may our study be pleasant before your place of honor as aroma of sweet incense. And may you emanate to us the light from the source of all of our soul to all of our being. And may the sparks of your holy servants, through which you revealed your wisdom to the world, shine. May their merit and the merit of their fathers and the merit of their Torah and holiness support us, so we shall not stumble through our study. And by their merit enlighten our eyes and our learning, as stated by King David, the sweet singer of Israel. Open my eyes so that I will see the wonders from your Torah, because from his mouth God gives wisdom and understanding. May the utterances of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, God, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. Amen. Okay. Does anybody have anything they want to comment on Parsha Behar? Before we get into it. Everybody read the Parsha? Alright. I'm going to read a little bit of this Parsha here, and so that we kind of get a gist of what's going on. And then we will, like we always do, we will rewind a little bit and follow the flow, because the flow is important. What's going on in the mind of God? Is that John?
Mm-hmm. Hello.
Hashem spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, okay, so what's the first thing, what's the first catch we get right here?
Hashem spoke to Moses.
Where?
On Sinai.
Alright. So when did this Parsha take place?
In the exile.
At the giving of the Torah.
Could have been at the burning bush.
Well, it was before it was when Moses was up on the mountain for 40 days.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Which is about 6 or 7 Parshas ago. Right? Because this was before the golden calf. Mm-hmm. And so after the golden calf, we read through the Parshas, right? And it was all about separation. Remember? Separating the Erev Ra, separating the women, and then the bodily fluids, and then the food, and then the animals, and all the everything was about separation. Then we get to the part on the last few Parshas where everything is about union. Mm-hmm. And in that union, then he would list, okay, here's what messes up the union. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. So he separated everything out to clean it up. And then he's telling everybody how to bring it back together. Keep this, keep this, keep this. The things that cause disunion, or literally makes a hole in the union, is the last few do's and all the don'ts. All right, because everything is about the whole tikkun and fixing everything out of the tohu. Now we get the if y'all remember in more last week we talked about the son of the Israelite woman and the waste, and God was getting rid of the waste in that parsha and all that. So all of a sudden he's cleaned everything up, and now he's talking about Shabbat. Okay? So, but he takes us all the way back to the mountain where he really talked about it. But he doesn't talk about it in the Torah till now. In other words, it's not written in sequence, but it's brought up now. And so we're gonna kind of go through that. What does Behar mean? It means on the mountain. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land that I give you, the land shall observe a Sabbath rest for Hashem. For 6 years you may sow your field, and for 6 years you may prune your vineyard, and you may gather in its crops. But the 7th year shall be a complete rest for the land, a Shabbat for Hashem. Your field you shall not sow, and your vineyard you shall not prune. Now, real quick here, it doesn't say not to gather.
That's true.
You understand?
Don't prune.
It says don't prune, don't plant. It doesn't say don't gather. That's important. The aftergrowth of your harvest you shall not reap, and the grapes that you had set aside for yourself you shall not pick. It shall be a rest for the land. And these are things that's on the outskirts. The Sabbath produce of the land shall be yours to eat. See? Right there. For you, for your slave, and for your maidservant, and for your laborer, and for the resident who's dwelling with you. That's very key. Who is the resident dwelling with them? Us. And for your animal, and for the beast, and they shall eat its crop. See, they went through the whole, he went through all the categories all the way down to the animal level. All right? And you shall count for yourself 7 cycles of sabbatical years, 7 years, 7 times, and the 7 years of the 7 cycles of the sabbatical years shall be 49. Now, what did we just get through doing?
The 49 Omer.
Counting the Omer. 49. And what is Pentecost? 50. Right? And so 50, there's a lot of things going on here. This is when, they on the 50th day he ascended the mountain. Right? So there's a lot of things going on. And this is talking about the Sabbaths. And we read a couple parshas ago, and you shall keep my Sabbaths. Remember that parsha? And we did a whole big thing on that. What are the Sabbaths? All right. To go back and give you a baseline on that and clear it up, the Sabbaths are, which would be Bina, which is considered first Sabbath, and Nukva or Malchut is the second Sabbath. In other words, upper hay, first hay, second hay. That's why we say Hamotzi, that's a hay, Lekimin, Haaretz, the second hay. All right, that's what the bread is. All right, because it's a culmination of the total 6. Now, but this first Sabbath comes from the 8th king and the shattering of the vessels. That's where that emanates from, which is Mahetavel, Adam and Eve. All right, that's the first. That's considered the first Sabbath. This is the second Sabbath. All right, so there is a lower Sabbath, and there is obviously a higher Sabbath. All right, so there is a Sabbath that is 6-7, 6-7, 6-7, like here, every week, but there's also a higher one that is 7 times 7. It's 7 times 7, which is 49. Who do we know is 49? What's the gematria of 49? MT, Metatron. Metatron. All right? So, I'll just kind of give you a brief overview here, and then we're going to get into what's going on. So, all of the details of Shabbat and Jubilee, which is the sabbatical year, which is the 50th year, were given on the mountain to Moshe at Sinai. Why at Sinai? All commandments, everything that we've read in Torah that has to do with, and God said to Moses, and say to the children of Israel, every one of these parshas starts out like that. Every one of those is on the mountain. Every single one of them. So all of it is Sinaitic in origin. All right? Now, the laws of Shemitah. This is the sabbatical year. It's called Shemitah. Shemitah means to let lay or to rest.
How do you spell that, Mike?
Shemeta. It also means to let go, which is very important, because you will let your slave go. You will let it go. All right? Now, there is a Sabbath in time, and there's a Sabbath in space. The Sabbath that's in time is the weekly Sabbath. The Sabbath that's in space-time, is, because that's the higher one, is the sabbatical year. All right? And so when they would observe the sabbatical year here in time, it was because that was brought to here. All right? Now, they do not observe the sabbatical year anymore because it has been lost. And they cannot recalculate it. All right? Now, there is a very good reason why all that, because it has been concealed. So it can be revealed. All right? It is concealed. Why? Because the Shekhinah, Israel, the Nukva, Rachel, all the feminine aspects are in exile. And that is the culmination of the upper feminine aspect. Right? Because once you get to 50, once you get to Bina, that's what we call the world to come. That's Olam Haba. So it is when it is going to be the sabbatical year when Messiah gets here. That's what he's going to reveal. That's his purpose. Because everything has been in exile, and it's been stretched and stretched and stretched. And I'm going to go over that a little bit more so that you can kind of get a visual and see it in your mind what's happening. Now, the Jubilee is, the term for Jubilee is Yovel. Y-O-V-E-L. Somehow they have mistranslated it and called it Jubilee. But the correct term is Yovel. Does anybody know what Yovel is in Hebrew? It's a ram's horn. It's a shofar. So, you cannot plant, and we're going to kind of go through this a little bit, you cannot plant in the 49th or on the 50th. Alright? At the end of the 49th or the 50th, those you cannot plant. Now, reading through the Lurianic stuff, you don't have to plant because it's in union, and when it's in union, it's giving birth on its own. It is planting itself. That's why you don't have to go out and do it. You don't have to do this. You don't go out, you don't plant, you don't do this. Why? Because it doesn't need you at that point. It's in union, and it's doing it on its own. The crops are coming up on their own. Everything is coming up on its own. But what it needs, and this is, and if you bring that down to the weekly Sabbath, what does the Sabbath need? What does God need? What does Zeron Peen and the Nukva need? They're back to back all week. They need to be separated and union. What has God been doing in the last 10 Parshas? Separating out for union. What did He do with Adam and Eve? He separated them so they could have union. This is what the 6 days of creation are. The 6 days of creation is Zeron Peen. The 7th day is the Nukva. So on the 6 days He was creating and separating. Creating and separating. Created the heaven and earth, separated. The land and the water, separated. Everything was creation, separation. Why? So that there could be union. And once there's union, there's no need. That's why He rested. It's on autopilot. It will create on its own. All right. So that's why on Shabbat you don't have to. You shouldn't have to do anything. It's on God's autopilot. But what does God need? Here, the mitzvahs and all the do's and don'ts that we do during the week, that's what causes the union on Shabbat. If we sin or cause a hole in the process, there's no union. God can't do it. We have to do it. If we want supernal peace here, then we have to do it. That's why the Jews say, God says, if every Jew would keep one Shabbat, we'd be in the world to come. Mm-hmm. You see? But we know they're not doing it, and we know we're not doing it because we ain't there yet. Now, the question is, where is God's consciousness at? We think, God's out there, He's kind of orchestrating. No. And only in this class can we say this: God does not know what's going on. He can't, unless we send back the information. Why is this world hell? Because this is the second. What's the second iteration? If the first one's Hasidim, this is the second one. The second one's Guvarot. That's why this world is the way it is. We're in Guvarot. Guess what? There's 5 more. And we're going to get into how they're calculating how long the world has been, how long it's going to be on that way. See, we're only in the second iteration of 6-7. And the world is 18 billion years old. Mm-hmm. Right? This is a tough concept. Look at it like this. I have my sorodic structure here, and as you see on the Keter is stapled to Teferet on every one. But what's more important is Da'at is always over Yesod. And this would be Atzilut, this would be Berea, this would be Yetzirah, and if I had another one it'd be Asiyah. But what you don't see is the Malchut of every single one of these has stretched out, and they're all on the same. In other words, the Malchut of Atzilut is here. The Malchut of Berea is here. The Malchut of Yetzirah is here. And the Malchut of Asiyah is here. So earth is the very center. think of it all coming in three-dimensional. Think of a ball and put earth in the middle of the ball, and the ball is God. We are in the very center of God's consciousness. God's not out there, He's right here in the center of it. And that's us. And what we're having to do through mitzvah is keep from tearing and putting a hole in the connection between Yesod and Malchut. 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7. Because all the lower 6 sefirot run into Yesod. And that's 6. The bottom one is 7. So, when we keep Shabbat, we connect this world to that. This world to that. This world to that. And it has to iterate, a day is 1,000 years, right? It has to iterate 6,000 years to get to the 7th. But guess what? If there's a 7th, there's an 8th, there's a 9th, there's a 10th. I mean, if one of these days is 1,000 years to us, it's all happening at the same time in the mind of God. Because it's like a wave. 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7. Expansion, contraction. Expansion, contraction. See, we see a tree, and a tree grows and makes another ring. Where does that wood come from? Where does it come from? It comes from where? Nobody knows. The tree just makes another ring. Right? Earth. If you look at our earth, you can cut into the earth and you can see the stratorlaea. Is somebody hauling more dirt to earth?
I've wondered that a lot myself.
You follow me?
And archaeology has everything buried.
Yeah. Is there a huge dump truck that brings another layer of dirt? Or is it emanating out from the center? You see? So when things are emanating out from the center of God's consciousness, and we can dig into the earth, we can see the worlds, how God has grown this planet, this universe, the galaxies. It's just God's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. This is Him going to the edge and stopping, and going to the edge and stopping, and going to the edge and stopping. That's why we see His old creations, dinosaurs, etc., in strata. Because they are in the layers as this thing has been created, destroyed. Not really destroyed, but created. Expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction. You know? And as they're starting to discover with the Hubble telescope and stuff like that, that all these little bright stars out there are galaxies that have their own suns, and I mean, it's just immense, immense, and immense, and immense. And so it's limitless. But His consciousness is here. And the center of it is the Evan Shtia, the rock in Israel. That's the center of God's consciousness. Right? Mm-hmm. So, we'll go on. The 50th year, the slaves go free. And, Torah says, and the land returns to its rightful owner. Do y'all get that? The land returns to its rightful owner. Malchut is the land. Malchut will return to its rightful owner. Zerampin. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. All right. When every one of these malchuts are stretched to the nth nth degree. Stretched. God's stretching himself. If you think of a piece of cellophane, and I tell you, I want you to make this big. You can't cut it, you can't tear it, and you cannot poke a hole in it. You can twist it, you can pull it, you can do anything you want to. The only thing you can do is to stretch it and twist it and go in and out with it. You know, that's the tzimtzum. That's the creation process. What is sin? Poking a hole in it. Alright? Letting the virus in. Now, there's 4 people that made a hole in this whole process. Can we name them? Who would be the first one? Adam. Who? Who? Adam and
Cain.
Adam and who?
Enoch.
Russell?
The neat.
Noah.
Oh,
Who's the third one?
Esau.
The son of the Israelite woman. Who's, because we got to have Yud Hey Vav Hey here, right? Who's the fourth?
Yeah, sure.
Who?
Jesus.
Jesus. They made the holes that caused it to fall again.
Did we have a name for him? The Israelite woman's son? I don't think so.
Now, see, the Shabbat is how God counts. Let me turn on some air. The Shabbat is how God counts. So we have Sabbaths, we have space and time, we have a cosmic jubilee. All the other worlds that we have studied, Akudim, Nekudim, Berudim, they are not physical. There's no physicality there. That doesn't mean they don't exist. But they are not physicality. But each one of them is in this world. This is where all intersections meet. Right here. That's why the work has to be done here. Nowhere else. What do we know that God doesn't know? That. God doesn't know why bad things happen to good people. He can't. Unless we make the tikkun back. Unless we pray, unless we elevate that up and we go, God, what's going on here? Look what happened. He goes, oh, okay. Because it's it's contaminated, it's locked in extreme guvarot. It's in the tohu. You know, the old machloket. What does Moses know? God doesn't know. What does Rabbi Akiva know? Moses doesn't know. What does Rabbi Akiva know? God doesn't know. He just keeps on going and going and going and going. That's why we're here. We are the very far extensions of his nervous system. If we don't send the signal back to the brain, it doesn't know. Now, there are, like when it was in Egypt, he said, I heard their cries. You see? He got it. And he goes, and we're going to have to go down and see this. You know? Babel, I heard the sound. I have to go see. Sodom and Gomorrah, I have to go see. You see? He is allowing us, he's allowing himself to show himself. Because he's hiding himself from himself. He's concealing himself in order to reveal himself. It's the only way it works. Because if he quote unquote knew everything, there would be nothing new. There wouldn't be a new iteration. There wouldn't be a new ring on the tree. And so, just as a tree grows and grows and grows and we don't know where the wood comes from, so God does too. And that's how he's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and his consciousness is growing and growing and growing. But we're the center of that. This is a very difficult concept, but this is a concept of Shabbat. All right. Now, so for 7 days a week, we are we get the 7-day week is exclusively from the Jews. There's no other culture that had a 7-day week. Now, a lot of other cultures had a 30-day month because they got that from the moon cycles and sun cycles. But the 7-day week is exclusively from Torah. So that's where we get that from. But this is only, it's what's only unique to Torah is Shabbat. That's what makes it so unique. So, if the land is in exile, and the Shekhinah is in exile, and Israel's in exile, obviously, and all these things are in exile, where are we at as far as the cosmic jubilee goes? The answer is nobody knows. Nobody knows. Guess what? God doesn't know. He's concealing that. So once it makes its correct amount of cycles, whatever that is, as soon as we send back enough signal, that's all it's waiting on. Like I said a while ago, if all the Jews would keep the Sabbath one time, boom, it would happen. It would have enough signal, and the Mashiach would be there.
Is that the...
It's waiting on us. We're not waiting on it. You know, what happens is, we waiting for the Messiah to come. The Messiah's waiting for us to call them. We're not waiting on them. They're waiting on us. It's just the opposite of what you think. Well, they can only come when it has met it's got enough stimulation from below. In other words, there's been enough union of 6-7 down here. You know, union can only have that up there can only have union here when there's union here wanting union from up there. You know, the man can only have union with his wife when his wife wants union. There ain't no other way around it. If she's not ready and she doesn't want it, you ain't getting it. Period. God's the same way. It works the same way. You know? And the question is, you know, I don't want to be crude about it, but if you say, well, you're getting in that, well, I don't know. You know? That's the way it works. It only has to come from below. It's stimulation from below, from the nukva, from the female aspect. Now, big key here. Why did the vessels shatter? The vessels shattered.
The cycle wasn't complete.
There was no vessel. What's the vessel? The woman.
Yeah.
They had no women. There was no vessel. It was just male. And so obviously it couldn't contain the light. What couldn't contain the light? There wasn't a female. Only until we get the 8th king and the 8th king had a wife. Could contain the light. Tohu Tikkun. Tohu Tikkun. Now, this is going to blow your mind. The word, time didn't start until Adam, until the fall. Alright? Do you know what time is in Hebrew? It's Zayin Mem Nun, which spells, make sure I get this right, I want 7 female kings.
Zion Mem.
Zayin Mem Nun is, 7 female kings died. 7 female kings. What is God trying to do? Shabbat. He's trying to resurrect the 7 female kings. I call them the queens. Once the queens the Nukva, the Malchuts are all reconnected and nobody puts any holes in the connection, then the 7 queens are reunited with the 7 kings, and the Tohu is no longer Tohu. It's Tikkun, because it's union. It's all going to go back all the way to there. Because where is there? There is here. All right. So let's continue, and we'll kind of go through this, and you'll see what happened. When we exit Yom Kippur, we blow the shofar, the yovel, the ram's horn. The Sabbath is a unit of 6/7. God only looks at them as seconds. We look at it as a whole week, you know. We have 6/7, 6/7. These are the days. We have 6/7, 6/7. These are the 1,000 years. But why stop? Why stop there? It can be billions and trillions and on. So what do we do when we count the Omer of each of the 7 lower Sphirot? Then you know you count the 7 lower of each one of them. Each time you count a 7, because you're trying to get to Bina, Shavuot, which is tonight. And what are you supposed to do tonight? You're supposed to have study Torah all night.
Well, that's last night.
Or last night. Well, actually, it's tonight.
It's today.
Yeah. And so this, counting the Omer, going to Shavuot, is counting the cosmic jubilees, all we're doing. Mm-hmm. We're doing a small iteration of trying to get to the world to come, to that 50, to Bina, Olam Haba, to the supernal mother, Ima. All right? And so, as this thing is ascending up, so are we. That's why last weekend I said, you're not. If you don't do that, you're not pure. You're not. Why do you have to be pure? Because if you go to Olam Haba, you got to be pure, right? So it's kind of ironic, if you want to say the irony of God, how these parshas follow. You know what's going on in the whole scheme of things. They're written very, very skilled for reason here. So some say it's 18,000 cosmic years, which is 50 million years old. Some say it's 50,000 cosmic jubilees, which is 2,000 million years old. And you know, it's what it has got down to is all the Torah scholars are actually saying it's older than what the scientists are saying. Since the beginning, since the original Big Bang, so to speak. Now, Rabbi Akiva and his colleagues are the only ones who saw the world to come. Not Moses, not anybody else. But it is said that they saw it only through the eye of a needle. And they couldn't even explain it. Now, the way the Torah scholars say is, okay, if we take Malchut and we count up 7 Sphirot, those are the 6,000 years and 7,000 years that we're in right now. Right? Well, guess what? After that's gone, then we've got another 6-7 iteration to come, and another 6-7 iteration to come, and another 6 iteration, and so on and so on and so on, until all the iterations are complete. Well, we're 18 billion years old, and we're only in the 2nd iteration. We're only in the 2nd Shabbat, and that's only in the world of Asiya. But guess what? There's 3 on top too. And so on, and so on, and so on.
You'd think that we would live longer because once we get a little bit of
Yeah, but
grasp or concept, it seems like we could do more.
well, that's what's going to happen as you get higher level consciousness, and you get to Yetzirah. There's no death there. There's no klipa there. It's klipa's what's death. You know, that's what living forever is all about. Is getting the consciousness. So here's the deal. Now that we know, God knows. Not only that, this is coming out of the klipa itself. This is coming out of the tohu. Because where are we from? We're not from Adam HaRishon. Israel is from Adam HaRishon. We are from Adam Bli Ya'al. Adam Bli Ya'al is the Nakash side. Because it says here's what we have to look at. In Genesis 3:15 it says, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. Who's he talking to? The Nakash. I'm going to put enmity between your offspring and her offspring, and between your offspring and her offspring. So the Nakash has to have offspring, right? This is none other than Jacob and Esau. Adam, Messiah, Nakash, same gematria, front side, back side. All it is Hasidim and Guvarot. Adam HaRishon, Hasidim. Adam Bli Ya'al, Guvarot. Same person, right and left, front and back. All right. So what happens? These 7 are the kings of Edom, of Esau, right? The 8th king is Tikkun, Adam. Who is Adam? Adam is Israel. Who is Israel? Israel is Jacob. And just as the 8th king is holding on to the heel of the 7th king of the 7 kings of Edom here, what happened when Jacob came out of the womb? He was holding on to the heel of Esau. So now, because that didn't, the kings in the Tohu did not have a wife. Who else do we know that lost their wife? Esau. It's just the story iterated out all over again. Jacob was doing the tikkun for the wife of the king.
Are you referring to Leah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, referring to Leah. But, so we are that death of the wives. We are the fallen Ma'im Nukvim, the fallen feminine sparks that are lodged in the waist. Caused by the hole that Adam made, caused by the hole that Noah made, caused by the hole. This is Erev Ra, this is Sodom, Gomorrah, this is Babel, it's all the same thing. This is the Nephilim, caused by all these, caused by Yeshua, Hanotri. But what did that hole allow? It allowed him to separate the Tohu and Tikkun. And so that the Tohu wasn't attached to the Tikkun and contaminated it. That's what the last 10 Parshas are about, is cleaning up the Tohu off of the Tikkun. Getting everything cleaned up, holy, purified, so that it can start making union, so that now the vessel can be rebuilt, the body can be rebuilt, because there's 2 bodies. One's the body of Adam. What's the other body in the Bible called? Of the Tohu. The body of Christ.
No.
You see the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Because He's the son of the Israelite woman, whose father was Roman. All right, now we're going to get into Rome and what's going on. What are you doing, Russell? Sound like you're fixing a car. Now, the end of action, Malchut, is what is rising in the thought of God. Remember when Moses was on the mountain, the story in the Talmud where he sees Rabbi Akiva and everything, and he sees him getting martyred, and Moses says, God, this is your Torah and this is your reward. And he says, stoke, or shut up, because this is arising in my thought. Now you see what's going on. Because his thought is the center consciousness of Rabbi Akiva. Without Rabbi Akiva's martyrdom, he doesn't know what's going on. This is what's arising in my thought. Shut up, Moses. I'm in it. That it is me. And so everything we do, everything we say, every action we make is what is rising in the thought of Hashem. That's why even our thoughts are what's rising in his thoughts. That's why mitzvah, tikkun, holiness, all these other things is so important. Because when we don't do it, we make a hole in the connection. That's what it's all about. So as you can see, the end is really the beginning. Because the whole end of it is what's rising in God's thought, which is what was there in the first place, which is the beginning. It's a real matrixy thing. Because there's nothing here but the consciousness of God. That's why he knows the end from the beginning. But he doesn't know the end until he gets there. Which is a hard concept to fathom. Now, the inversion is tikkun. The purpose of the mitzvah is to keep us from perforating the stretching. The connection. The word for connection, to remove the connection, is called desecration. Don't desecrate the name of God. Don't desecrate the sanctuary. Don't desecrate this, desecrate that. That's to put a hole. That's why last week's Parsha ended the way it did, right before Shabbat, with the Israelite son. What made the fall was a hole. And we went through, and what did it do? It let Metatron out. And the virus attached itself to Metatron. This is Adam Blia all. That's why we have two bodies now. The body of Adam, the body of Christ. The front side, the back side. It is also why we discussed earlier why the head of Esau is in the lap of Isaac. Now, back to my deal. Back to my deal. The shattering of the vessels. Remember I told you the Da'at's in the head? We're going to call this Da'at, the Da'at of Esau. Alright? Where is it? Yesod.
In the lap.
Of the next world up. Where is the head of Esau? The redeemable part? It's on the Yesod of his father Isaac. Because Isaac is Guvarot. And this is the iteration of Guvarot. And Esau is the kings of Edom. Esau is the Tohu. Esau is the Gentiles. Esau is Rome. Esau is what made the ultimate whole. Esau is Adam Blia all. Esau is the Nakash. There's only two things. Tikkun, Tohu. Nakash, Mashiach. There's only two things here. He and his name. Nothing else. It's one thing, but it's front side, back side. All right? So we are the conscious da'at of the head of Esau. Why? Because we've returned to Torah. And what we have to do is do 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7. We have to elevate Netzach Hod Yesod, Teferet Guvero Hesed, and Malchut of the Tohu when we keep Shabbat. That's our 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7. We have to bring that up back into Da'at before it got shattered. That's we're not working on the body of Adam. We can't do mitzvahs and feast and all that, and the prayers and the Jews and all the stuff they do. That's for the body of Adam. We're not making one stinking dent in that. But what we can do is work in the Tohu, because that's where we live, in the septic tank, and pull the sparks out of there. And that's what the Leshem talks about, the Ger Gerurim that do that. That's what sends that fuel, all that mitigated, tikkun out of the Tohu Guverot. That's what sends us into the Messianic age. That's what these rabbis are understanding. That's what Sutton's understanding. He understands there's something different than Noahide. Noahide is the whole Tohu itself. But out of that, what has to come out of that is the holy head of Esau. Because it is in the cave of Machpelah with Isaac and Jacob and Abraham. And so that is what we have to strive to do, to elevate those sparks the 6 days and keep Shabbat, and because we're working on the back side of it, on the other side of the fence. They can't come over here. If they come to our side and try to mess with that, they get contaminated. It causes another perforation in the deal. But if we bring it on that side, that's something completely different. That's something completely different. So what we've done is we've used their formula of how to tikkun it over here. Now obviously they make tikkun and tohu too, but they stay away from tohu as much as they can. They don't go around a dead body. They don't go around this. They don't, you know what I'm saying? They are completely separated out because they're working on the airplane. We're working on the airplane fuel. Because it can't fly without it. And that's what our Sabbath is doing. Now, let's go on a little bit here. It is all about the Da'at of Adam Bli Ya'al, which is the head of Esau. Russell, we can add this to my paper. What it is the stolen identity of a Tik Yomin. You know, you have a Tik Yomin and a Recon Pin, which is a Tik. All right, if you have Keter, the Keter of Keter is a Tik Yomin. The Malchut of Keter is a Rik Anpin. So, and that iterates all the way down. So, what has the Tohu done? It is captured the identity of a Tik, which is enormous. Now, the Vatican, in their language, it's Vatik. The Vatican is the stolen identity from Edom of a Tik. The supernal spiritual power of Rome, because that's who made the whole, the biggest whole, Yeshu, Rome. That's why the Roman Church is as powerful as it is, because he made the whole in the Shabbat. You've heard it say this, 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 but I tell you this, this, this. No. So, that's what we're trying to get back. We're trying to return the identity of a teak. What we call time is only 1/10 of what really time is, because Malchut is only 1/10 of the 10 Sphirot. So what we call time is only 1/10 of what things really are. And we are at, and now because we're at the 10th is the last edge. We are at the edge of time. You know, each one of these Sphirot here is a dispensation in time. We can read it right through the Torah. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, David. You know, if you chronologically the years, you can see those men were working on those coordinates at that time. You know, that's why during the time of that this went faster than this, because this is stretched out. Malchut is stretched. But you know, during the time of Isaac, and there was famine in the land, and there was famine, and there was, you know, it was hell. It was Guverot. It was constriction. That's why he was bound up. Because Guverot is constricted, and that's why it's called the binding of Isaac. Now, moving on. Moses is Shabbat. If time wasn't real, then what would Shabbat be? Moses is the Yesod. The commandments are Netzachot. And Sinai is Malchut. See what's going on there? That is the Shabbat. That was, because what? They were supposed to be going to a Lom Haba, but lo and behold, they made the golden calf and it fell back down. He had already fixed the whole formula was fixed, because everything pours down into Netzachot and Yesod from the upper Sphirot of Hesed, Guverot, and Tiferet. So if you have the 10 Commandments, which is the right side and left side, and you have Moses, who is the center, and it's on Malchut, the mountain. It was all there. It was all lined up. It was all ready to go. But it still has to go through its iterations of 6767. And that was only about year 2000. So, that's why it's still rolling. It says, "Blessed is the one that sanctifies Israel, and the times, to observe, to do, and to watch." The question is not how old is the earth or how old are we. The question is, how old is God? That's the real question. Not how long is the world to come going to be, but how long is God going to be? Because if you ask it in that realm, 6-7 it goes on forever. All right. Anytime it says Shabbats, it's always talking about 2, higher and lower. And anytime the Torah talks in the plural, it's always talking about 2. And they complained against Moses. And they complained, you know who they were? Those were the 2 guys, Dathan and the other guy. It was only just those 2. It's always just 2. The 7 Sphirot are the 7 days of Genesis. And all the 7 days of Genesis and all the 7 Sphirot are here. There are 7 states of Tohu, each with its own iteration and its corresponding iteration. All it is the Hook principle. What happened? Russell leave me? You still there, Lonnie?
Yeah, I'm still here. I turned my mic on.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to this Parsha is a little bit different from the rest of them because of what it's talking about. You know. So I'm gonna go just a little bit here in the apples. I'm not gonna go to the restroom. Read just a little bit out of here. Let's see here. I highlighted some stuff in here that I thought would be good to go over. So what it's saying here is that all week, Russell.
Hey, are you there?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Here's what's going on. Malchut, when you draw it, it appears to be on the bottom, but it's not. It's actually behind these three. It's really behind Netzach Yesod. All right. And so, why is it behind them? Because it was created back to back. Female Malchut, the Nukva, was created behind, let's call Yesod Adam. Actually, she is the tip of his Yesod. Alright? And so it has to be removed so that it can face to face, so that it can have union. This is the 6. This is the 6. This is the 7. Alright? This is the 6 days of working, the 7th day of rest. So, it says Malchut stands behind Zeranpin. Malchut does not occupy vertical space. This is true on the weekdays. When Malchut is back to back with Zeranpin, it is also true on Shabbat, when they turn and face each other. We are intended to focus on the task of rectifying the physical world during the week. It entails a temporary disconnection from our higher selves as we go forth in the jungle and desert and the earth to slay all the dragons to spread the light. It goes on to say, in order to engage in a reality on its own level, we have to turn our backs, so to speak, on the pure experience of inspiration so we can do the work at hand. On Shabbat, however, we are rid from the task of saving the world and rest and reconnecting with our higher selves, with our original true selves. In this terminology of Kabbalah, this means our Nukva and our Zeranpin face each other in order to couple. This is an expression of recharging and renewing the contacts and emotion and power over them. Bear in mind the word Shabbat, Shin, which has a little three-prong, Bet Tav, reads, the Bet Tav is the daughter of Shin, because she is the daughter of Abanima. This is because Malchut is called the daughter. Ascends to the level of Hesed, Guvurot, Tiferet, which are Hesed, Guvurot, Tiferet, which are the three branches of the Shin. And it alludes to the three patriarchs as is known: Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Do you remember when we studied when he brought him out of the land of Egypt, that he had them circumcise themselves, and they put the blood on the door. The door is Malchut, right? The door is also the tip of Yesod, which is Malchut. The door is a hay, letter hay. So the blood, that was the blood of circumcision. That's how he got them out there. Not on their own merit, but on the merit of the covenant. And that's the door. So, what did God say to Cain about the door? Sin is crouching at your door. You see what he was telling Cain? The Malchut is connected to Yesod. But sin is crouching at your door. In other words, there is, if you do this, you're going to make a hole in the connection between the door, Malchut, and the upper Yesod. That's what sin is. And that's what Shabbat reverses. That's why you see the door. Every time you see door, you immediately got to go Malchut. Every time. Land, Malchut. The bed, Malchut. Anything like that. It always goes there. This goes back to the story. You remember the story I told when about the mountain goat who was too small and she was pregnant and her mortal enemy was the serpent, and it bites her and it gives her an episiotomy and she gives birth. It's the same. That's the story of Passover to get to Shavuot 50 Pesach. That's the story of Shabbat. In other words, what seems like harsh judgment Guvarot, the snake, the serpent, it's the very thing that it needs to deliver, to give birth to the next thing. You see? It's the very thing. So, what I'm saying is, us Gentiles, so to speak, we are the very thing in the Tohu that it needs to trigger the Shabbat, the 50, the Jubilee, the Yovel. We're the thing it needs. And when I say it needs, God needs. Israel needs. That's what makes us relative in some form or fashion in Torah. Yeah, let's see here. I found some more good stuff. I told y'all that. All right. Now, Malchut receives its light from the sixth Sefirot above it, as we know. This is reflected in the fact that the sabbatical year in which the lower worlds ascend to Malchut of Atzilut occurs after 6 years, corresponding to the input of the six higher Sefirot into Malchut, which we know. Bear in mind that we have already explained that the origin of all this is what happens to the kings in Edom. The account of the death of the kings in Edom is allegorically correlated to the shadow of the vessels in the world of Tohu. Because they died, we have to elevate and retrieve their sparks, which is their nukvas. Plus them. This is what's referred to as elevating the sparks. For we cause Zeranpin and Nukva to couple through our prayers, our deeds, which causes falling sparks of the fallen kings to ascend. This is called the feminine waters. This is the feminine waters, the stimulation from below. The coupling of Zeranpin and Nukva in this unification in the unification of emotion and expression is what we have explained. It is necessary in order that the female drive for expressing divinity in this world be properly inspired by divine emotion and not sidetracked into the enhancements of the reality. So in other words, we can't get caught up with our mundane life and our day-to-day life. In our day-to-day life, we need to constantly be trying to, in the 6 days, be elevating as much sparks as we can, doing as much mitzvah as we can, prayer, talking with God, the whole 9 yards, so that on the 7th day, boom, it's on autopilot. All right? Because we don't keep the Sabbath keeps us, right? The accomplishments of our female consciousness, which is our prayers, our good deeds, inspire our male consciousness toward divinity. This couples. This causes the fallen kings to be revived and renewed. This process will continue with God's help until our righteous Messiah arrives, when all the sparks of these kings will be able to be elevated. Then the good and holiness within them will be rectified and purified. And that's where it says, and death will be swallowed up forever. Because the only thing that died, the only death that's ever happened is the fallen kings. And reigned and died, and reigned and died, and reigned and died, and reigned and died. That's what brought death. See? So, once the fallen kings are rectified, there is no more death. There's no more. Because it's swallowed up forever. Because it's all rectified. And so, and that's in the world of Nekudim, man. Way back there. Thus, all our prayers and our mitzvahs in this world are only in order to purify and elevate the sparks of the fallen 7 kings. That's what it's all about. Tohu. As we have explained, everything that makes up all the worlds derives from these 7 kings. There is nothing that is not derived from them. Now, had these kings not died and become nullified, and had the shells been formed from their remains, it would not be necessary for us to purify them. They would be intrinsically purified and would require no rectification whatsoever. But now that they have died, it requires rectification, action from below, prayers, mitzvahs, Shabbats, in order to rectify and elevate the feminine waters. Now, it is the same regard with each of the worlds. Not only the world of Nekudim, Berea, but Atzilut, Berea, Yetzirah, and Asiya. The 4 worlds. They have to be rectified too, because the shattering, to use the metaphor of the blast over there in West, the blast was felt for miles and miles and miles, not just in Nekudim. All the way through to Asiya. Right? And what are those worlds? They're souls. That's everything. Not only is it a world, it's a soul. There's no separation between the worlds and the souls. So, as souls come into this world, if you put a hole in that world, you affect that soul. That's why everything we do here affects a soul there, the angelic soul or the Adamic. It's an all Adamic soul. So if we do Lashon Hora here, it kills something there. You see how it works? Because it's all the 7 kings. The whole thing. It's not only the worlds. It's the soul of Adam, of Hashem, of the whole thing. And so that's why, if you want to draw down a holy soul, you have union with your wife on Shabbat, because that's when there's union in the lower worlds. That's when there's union in the upper worlds, and you would conceive a holy child, a high soul, without a hole, not an evil little kid. That's why they do that, because they understand the math behind what's going on. So when the Jews are trying to have kids, they'll only couple on Shabbat.
So what about those of us that were accidentally unplanned,
Well,
conceived?
Yeah,
Shabbat?
yeah, we were in the
I mean, are we-
in the back of the car on a Tuesday afternoon. Yeah. Well, that's why we are what we are, guys.
Yeah, but there might have been some parents on Friday night.
Yeah, but you got to have a consciousness of it.
Consciousness, okay.
Yep.
That's what I was wondering.
Yep. In other words, as the soul descends on its way into the body, it undergoes a process of consciousness and constriction, paralleling to the level of consciousness is defined in those four worlds. As a part of this process, the soul picks up a perspective of the sparks of the world of Tohu that could not be assimilated into these worlds. So, as that soul is descending, it's picking up either contamination, Tohu, and it's going to be born here into this world, or tikkun. See what I'm saying? Because you're drawing it down. So if you can draw a soul into this world and have a child, you can elevate one. It's just as simple. It's all about Yesod, right? It's the same thing. The formula works both ways.
What if your child is already an adult?
Well, as soon as they get here, the whole thing was over. Yeah, but that doesn't mean you can't pray and do things and patch the hole that it caused, and therefore do tikkun for the soul. Nothing in Torah is that's it. Nothing can be done there. If it was, there wouldn't be the world of Tohu and Tikkun. It'd just be the world of Tohu.
I can do tikkun for myself.
Yeah.
And for my children.
Sure.
How about my parents
Why not?
and my grandparents?
Yeah. Does the Nukva not affect Abba and Ima? And not affect Atik and Arik? Of course. Of course. That's a family tree. Literal tree. That's the tree of the knowledge of the family. Of good, Tikkun, and evil, Tohu. That's all it is. Now, let's see.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, Lonnie.
Hey, while there's a kind of little break in the action, I'm going to have to leave here in a little bit. I got a geek coming over to install some virus software. So when I leave, don't take offense to it. I just have some. I don't want a virus, buddy.
I get you. All of this in order that we may elevate the kings by the power of the mitzvah. And this is there's also a psalm. This is what is in Psalm 68:35. This is why it says, "Give power to God." God ain't got enough power. But the psalm says, "Give power to God." He got to have us. We're it. So we have to give the power to God. Yes, we have to stimulate from below. You know? It's like if you don't say I'm hungry, how can I give you anything to eat? I didn't know you were hungry. You know? So Shabbat is the consciousness of Malchut in the ascension. And Malchut is capable of elevating the seven fallen kings, which is Shabbat. Mm-hmm. Therefore, on this day, the higher extremities, the six of Zah, are vested with the lower worlds during the 6 working days and ascend to their original state. When they are below, they elevate what there is to elevate below. So if there's nothing to elevate below, they can't do anything. That's why it's up to us. All they do there is couple with another and produce new souls. This is the secret of holiness of the Sabbath, and the reason why marital relations are prescribed for Torah scholars on the Sabbath. Because you're getting a higher soul. We talked about that before. We have a soul, but maybe I just got a nefesh of the nefesh. Maybe I want a ruach of the nefesh. Maybe I want the neshama of the nefesh. Maybe I want neshama of the chaya. Or the chaya. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I want a higher soul. You're still drawing down, you can still draw down a higher soul. Because we know our soul is made up of 5 parts anyway. But how big is 5 parts? 5 parts of which Shfarot? We know, there's a nefesh, a ruach, a neshama, a chaya, and a yechaida, right? 5 parts. Well, within those 5 parts is a nefesh, a ruach, and a neshama. You see what I'm saying? And so, what? Not only are we elevating the sparks for the weak, we are getting back a higher soul of our own accord. So not only if we're trying to having a kid, does that kid get a higher soul? We get a higher soul too, because where does that soul come from? Through us, through Yesod, energy. All right, and this is the secret of Shabbat. This is the secret of the higher Shabbat. When Bina, when the world will come, when Zah and Nuke, they're having their union and it's higher. And what that's going to be? Heaven and earth come together. Zah is heaven, Malchut, Nukva is earth. Heaven and earth. When they come together, had to all be cleaned up. Metatron had to be cleaned up. Very little cleaning needed to be done there. But it all stimulates from below, and Earth's having to be cleaned up. 6 days, for 6 days, the Earth's going to elevate its sparks. Guess what? That 6 days has turned into 6,000 years. So our week is only a micro of the macro that's happening.
So we can elevate our own soul by observing the Sabbath.
And draw down a holy one.
Draw down a holy.
Yeah. It's all through Torah. That's what the Torah is. Torah Zeranpin. Torah Zeranpin, you're nuclear. Boom. Holy soul. Higher soul. See what I'm saying? I don't want to use holy. I want to say elevated soul. All of a sudden you've gone up the rung of the ladder a little bit. That's what the Torah does. But it's good to have a consciousness of it because you know what's going on. In other words, you're not just keeping it. You're keeping it for the sake of heaven. You're not just keeping it for its sake. Follow me? There's always a difference. You're not doing Torah because you want to learn Torah. You're doing Torah because you want to do something with Torah. That's for the sake of heaven. If you're not doing anything with it, then it's useless to you. So, let me see here. Because, remember in the Psalm where it says, and God made you a little higher than the angels? Mm-hmm. Who's he talking to? Adam. You can understand this better based on what is explained in the exposition on Adam. That is, he was originally higher than Metatron. And who is Metatron? Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. Havayah. Elohim. Hashem. It's all Metatron. Adam's higher than that? We can't even conceive of what Adam really is. Can't even conceive it. All the best, if you think about what you think about God and how big and mighty and powerful God is, the highest you can get is Zeranpin right now. That's it. That's all your mind can possibly wrap around. Even as much as you have a grasp of the power of God, that's just Zah. You ain't even gotten to Abba, Atik, Arik, much less Adam. And then we got Ak, So don't even, you'll never even, and you'll never get there. It'll because you can't. In other words, how old's God, and how long is He going to live? You'll never get to that outer ring. The inner ring, because it just keeps. Because as soon as this iteration's done, guess what? Here we go again. Here we go again. Here we go again. But it's never going to be like this ever again. You know, the pole shift of the earth, that's nothing new in Kabbalah. The earth has been pole shifting ever since it's been earth. You know what? When the North Pole is negative, north, Groover Road, south, positive, you know when the Messiah is going to come? When we have a pole shift. That is the shift. That is Hoog. That is Hasidim and Groover Road mitigating polar shift. Boom! When Groover Road goes inside and it's all gone. It's not only going to happen to us. People don't get it. They have no idea what the Messianic age is going to be. It's not only going to be us. It's going to be the trees, the rocks, the animals, the grass, the earth, the water, the fish. It's going to be, everything's going to go inside out. Everything. There's going to be a polar shift. They cannot stop global warming. It's Groover Road. It's hot. They can't stop it. It's stupid to think what they're doing. It's doing it on its own. It's not man-made. It's going through its 6-7. It's going through its cycle. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. All right, let me see here. See if we got anything else. This is where it quotes 96. This is the mystical significance of sing a new song on the Sabbath. Because everything's going to be different. The Sabbath is different. Sing a new song. Because there's no work. Because there's no need to work. There's no preparation because it grows on its own. It's in union. It's going to produce its own fruit. You know? So they wouldn't have to do anything. This is why the Torah says you can't separate on the Sabbath. Can't separate this from that. You know, there's a whole bunch of laws of separation. Well, you can't separate on the Sabbath. Why? Everything's in union. God just went through 10 parshas of separation. Separating, you know, this offering and that offering. Separating the women in their time of the month. Separating the men. Separating the tribes. Separating the Levites. Separating the Kohanim from the Levites. You know? Separating the Erev Ra. Separating. You know? Separating linen and wool. Separating the ox and the this and the bull, and all the separation has to occur because he's lining all the coordinates up. That's why on the Sabbath you can't separate. You're not supposed to separate. No separation should happen because in the world to come there's not going to be any separation. It's all going to be one. The forces of evil are called the realm of death. Therefore, it is written of the Sabbath, those who desecrate it shall surely die. Here, by working on Shabbat, the individual has divorced himself from divine energy, informing the world, and, even worse, misdirecting divine energy to become available to be attacked and absorbed by evil forces. Thus, the one who works on Shabbat causes holiness to descend into the realm of evil and is liable for the death penalty. Now, here are the 39 categories of work forbidden on the Shabbat. I don't know if y'all want me to go through them, but it's sowing, plowing, reaping, binding of sheaves, threshing, winnowing, selecting, grinding, sifting, kneading, baking, shearing wool, bleaching, hackling, dyeing, spinning, stretching of threads, making 2 meshes, weaving 2 threads, dividing 2 threads. Because everything should already be done. You see what I'm saying? You don't put 2 things together, you don't separate 2 things.
Those were things, all things that were done to make the tabernacle.
Yeah, and it goes on, cutting hides, kindling, pulling down, lifting up. I mean, all the things. So, there's this portion in here when I was talking about sin crouching at the door. Here's what it says. Malchut desires to give birth to souls impregnated within it. Now, when it is written, sin crouches at the door, this refers to the supernal snake who bites the reproductive organ of Malchut, opening her womb, causing her to give birth. And this is what happened in Egypt when they were spiritually immature, and God had to give them an episiotomy to get them out of there before they were consumed in tohu, and they would have never come out. And the end story was he had to make a deal with the devil. What was that deal? The golden calf. Ultimately. What time is it?
7:40.
7:40. All right. Just one last thing here. This is the secret of the divine name Ter Satan. For the numerical value for Satan is the same as the word for snake, Nakash, 358. This alludes to the fact that the snake is the one who tears open the womb of the doe, of the doe or the mountain goat. This tearing is accomplished by means of the divine name. The doe is or the mountain goat is an allegory for Malchut. It's talking about Malchut. And so that's why if you make a tear in the womb of Malchut, which is Shabbat, because when the male, Zeranpin, and female are in union, he's in her womb. And so if you make a tear in that, you make a separation. That is what the Satan does. The Nakash does. So, in order for evil forces not to latch on to new souls or your higher soul, requires the prayers of the righteous. Through our prayers, the supernal Nukva can give birth without recourse of the snake crouching at her door. And I guess that is good for this week. Next week, we shall continue on. So, maybe a little bit more to Shabbat than we thought, huh?
A little bit.
So what can you do on Shabbat other than read Torah?
That's all you need to do. Shabbat runs it.
What about eating and?
Well, Shabbat runs basically for Gentiles, so to speak. Shabbat runs itself. What we need to be doing is studying our Torah during the week, trying to do our mitzvahs during the week, whatever that is, not trying to help them to. Well, the Jews are basically helping them to unite. All right. What we're doing is not so much their work. What we're trying to do is work on the tohu within the tohu, elevating the sparks within the tohu. Whether that's rectification of our own lives, becoming more righteous, and becoming more conscious of God, and I think we've obviously we've been doing a pretty good job of it. The more we learn, the more we know to do. So, and it's keeping. I think it's keeping Shabbat on this side of the fence, doing mitzvahs on this side of the fence. Y'all, there's no temple, you don't need to do this. There's no temple, you don't need to do that. Well, guess what? We don't even live in the land. We live in the toilet. How about if we do it over here? How much tikkun can we make? Because not only do we want to pull ourselves out, we want to pull our families out, or, and we want to pull the whole thing out of the mud. We're special ops. We're behind the lines. We're doing the dirty work. We're in the sewer, So the more Torah, whether it's not speaking Lashon Hara, whatever it is, whatever we can do to make union on this side, or to bring sparks out, really it's bringing sparks out for union on that side. Because we don't want union on this side, so to speak. But we bring sparks to union on that side, then we get at it, then we get blessings from above. So the more we can become, the more we can connect our Da'at, the head of Esau, to Yesod of Israel, which is, his daddy was Isaac, And, that's how we make the connection. When our consciousness connects with that consciousness, and now we're in the lap of Isaac. And that is the return of the holy head of Esau. That's how we do Tikkun for Esau, which is reclaiming the kings of Edom. That's our part. That's what our job is. Yes.
Oh, nothing. I was exactly what you were talking about. Sutton talks about is that these sparks have been sucked out of the klipa in this mess. The toilet.
It's excrement. Yeah.
Yeah, excrement. That's what he's talking about. And he says, he goes on. Well, I think the best way, if I just read it, says, in the same way, you will see that many great souls are born into families of simple folk, or even wicked parents. Abraham is an example of this.
Sure.
He goes on to show David, Moses.
Look at Rachel and Leah. Their dad was Laban. Mm-hmm. He was the sorcerer of sorcerers. You know who he was kin to? Well, it's actually Gilgal. He's Balaam.
So it's really all about redeeming these sparks.
It's about redeeming the sparks, yeah. And so Shabbat is when you kick back and you say, okay, God, here's all the sparks I got for the week. I did my work. For 6 days you work. And on the 7th day you rest. He gives back to you. That's what we're doing. Picking up the pieces and sending them back up. And he's then collectively sending blessing back down. His light. His life force. So, well guys, the Torah is amazing. The sages are amazing. And we will see y'all next week. We will go on to the next Parsha. And
Just the last one.
this is the last one in Leviticus. Mm-hmm. And now this doesn't have anything to do with anything. But isn't it funny how we're in how God counts? And right around the corners is numbers. Just a coinkydink. Just a coinkydink. All right, well, Lonnie, good to have you with us.